The ground shook again. Dr. Jake Morrison grabbed the metal table as medical supplies crashed to the floor around him. The earthquake had been hitting Kepler 442b for 3 days now. Each tremor brought more injured people to his small medical tent. Jake wiped sweat from his forehead and looked at the long line of people waiting for help. Humans, mostly. Mining workers and their families from the colony. But there were others too. Different kinds of aliens who lived on this distant world. "Dr. Morrison?" called Nurse Amy Collins from across the tent. "We have another bad one coming in." Jake hurried over to see what Amy meant. 2 human miners were carrying something between them. At first, Jake thought it was a pile of broken metal and cloth. Then he saw the small hand hanging down. It was a child, but not a human child. The little being had blue-gray skin and long, thin arms. Her face was narrow with large, dark eyes. Jake had seen her kind before. They were called Zephyrians. They lived in the mountains and mostly kept to themselves. "Put her on the table," Jake said quickly. The miners laid the child down gently. She was unconscious. Her breathing was weak and shallow. Blood stained her simple brown clothes. "Found her under a pile of rocks," one miner said. "Her people. They just walked away. Said she was broken. Said there was no point trying to help her." Jake felt anger rise in his chest. He had heard about Zephyrian customs. If someone got badly hurt and could not work anymore, they were left behind. It was their way. But Jake could not accept it. He began checking the child's injuries. Her left leg was twisted at a wrong angle, clearly broken. But that was not the worst part. When Jake carefully moved her, he felt something terrible. Her spine was damaged, very badly damaged. "Amy, get me the scanner," Jake said. The medical scanner showed what Jake feared. The child's backbone was crushed in 2 places. Even if she lived, she would never walk again. In Zephyrian culture, this meant she was worthless. No wonder her people had left her to die. But Jake had not become a doctor to give up on patients. "What are her chances?" Amy asked quietly. Jake studied the scanner results again. "With normal treatment, she will live but never walk. Without treatment, she dies in a few hours. And with special treatment?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. He had been working on something new, a way to repair damaged spines using both human technology and alien biology. He had tested it in the lab but never on a real patient. Especially not on a Zephyrian. "I might be able to fix her," Jake said finally, "but it would take weeks, maybe months, and I am not sure it will work." Amy looked surprised. "The Zephyrians will not pay for months of treatment, especially not for a child they have already given up on." "Then we do it for free," Jake said. For the next 6 hours, Jake worked to save the child's life. He stopped the bleeding and set her broken leg. He gave her medicine to help her breathe. Slowly, her condition got better. But the real work had not started yet. When the child woke up the next day, she looked around with frightened eyes. She tried to move her legs but could not feel them. Tears ran down her blue-gray cheeks. Jake sat down next to her bed. "Hello," he said gently. "My name is Jake. I am a doctor. You are safe now." The child stared at him. She opened her mouth but no words came out. "Can you understand me?" Jake asked. The child nodded slowly. "Good. What is your name?" "Lyra," she whispered. Her voice was very soft and had a musical quality. "Lyra, that is a pretty name. Lyra, I want to help you. I want to try to fix your back so you can walk again." Lyra's eyes went wide. "Not possible. I am broken. My people say broken things stay broken." "Your people are wrong," Jake said firmly. "I think I can help you, but it will take a long time. And it might hurt sometimes. Are you willing to try?" Lyra was quiet for a long time. Then she nodded. The next 3 weeks were the hardest of Jake's medical career. He had to create new treatments just for Lyra. Zephyrian biology was different from human biology. Their bones were lighter but stronger. Their nerves worked differently. Everything Jake knew about medicine had to be changed. Other doctors told him he was wasting his time. The colonial government said he should focus on human patients. Even some of the miners who had brought Lyra to him said he should let nature take its course. Jake ignored them all. He worked 18 hours a day. He studied Zephyrian medical texts that no human had ever read before. He created new surgical tools. He mixed human medicines with Zephyrian healing compounds. Slowly, very slowly, Lyra began to get better. First, she could feel her toes. Then, she could move them a little. After 6 weeks, she could bend her knees. After 2 months, Jake helped her sit up on her own. "I can feel my legs," Lyra said one day, wonder in her voice. "That is just the beginning," Jake told her. Teaching Lyra to walk again was even harder than fixing her spine. Zephyrians were naturally graceful, but Lyra had forgotten how to use her legs. Jake had to show her everything: how to balance, how to put one foot in front of the other, how to trust that her body would support her. Many days Lyra fell down and cried. Many days she wanted to give up, but Jake never let her quit. "Your people were wrong about you," he told her during one particularly hard day. "You are not broken. You are strong, stronger than they know." After 4 months, Lyra took her first real steps. They were shaky and uncertain, but they were steps. Jake felt tears in his eyes as he watched her walk across the medical tent. "I did it," Lyra said, her voice full of joy. "I can walk. I can walk." "Yes, you can," Jake said, "and you will never stop walking." A week later, a Zephyrian ship came to collect Lyra. Her people had heard about the miracle, a broken child who learned to walk again. They were suspicious but also curious. As Lyra prepared to leave, she took Jake's hand in her small, thin fingers. "I will remember," she said in her musical voice. "I will remember the human who gave back the sky." Jake did not understand what that phrase meant, but he could see the deep gratitude in her large, dark eyes. "Just live a good life," Jake told her. "That is all the thanks I need." The Zephyrian ship took off into the purple sky of Kepler 442b. Jake watched until it disappeared among the stars. He never expected to see Lyra again. He had no idea that he had just changed the fate of the entire galaxy. 18 years had passed since Jake Morrison saved the Zephyrian child on Kepler 442b. Now he was 45 years old and running a medical center on Mars. His hair had gray streaks, and his face showed lines from years of helping sick people. But his hands were still steady and his heart still cared about every patient who came to him. The medical center was busy that morning. Jake was treating a worker who had hurt his arm in the mining tunnels when his assistant, Nurse Kate Miller, rushed into the room. "Dr. Morrison," she said, breathing hard. "There is an urgent message for you, from Earth, from Admiral Lisa Carter herself." Jake looked surprised. He knew who Admiral Carter was. Everyone did. She was the head of the Terran Defense Force, the military that protected all human colonies. Why would she want to talk to a simple doctor on Mars? "Tell her I will call back after I finish with this patient," Jake said. "Sir," Kate said nervously. She said it could not wait. She said it was about the survival of our species. Jake felt a cold chill run down his back. He quickly finished bandaging the worker's arm and told him to come back in a week. Then he went to his office and activated the communication screen. Admiral Carter's face appeared on the screen. She was a strong-looking woman with short black hair and serious eyes. But today, those eyes looked worried. Very worried. "Dr. Morrison," she said. "Thank you for taking my call. I wish I was calling with good news." "What is happening, Admiral?" Jake asked. "We are facing the greatest threat in human history," Carter said. 12 alien species have formed something called the hegemony. They have given us an ultimatum. All humans must leave every colony world and return to Earth within 6 months. If we refuse, they will destroy every human settlement in the galaxy. Jake felt his heart stop. "All of them? Even the peaceful ones?" "All of them," Carter confirmed. "The Dreknari, the Votech, the Crystalline, Union, the Hive Collective, and leading them all, the Zephyrian Star Empire. The name hit Jake like a punch to the stomach. Zephyrians. The same species as little Lyra, the child he had saved so long ago. Why? Jake asked. What did we do? Admiral Carter's face grew grim. According to their message, humans are a galactic threat. They say we expand too fast. They say we make friends with other species too easily. They say our way of thinking is dangerous to the established order. Jake shook his head. That is insane. We are just trying to survive and explore the galaxy like everyone else. I know, Carter said. But they see it differently. They think we will eventually take over everything if they let us continue. How many ships do they have? Jake asked, though he was afraid of the answer. Over 10,000 warships, Carter said quietly. We have maybe 300, and most of ours are small patrol ships, not real battleships. The numbers made Jake feel sick. What can we do? That is why I am calling you, Carter said. I need every human with special skills. I know about your work on Kepler 442b. I know you saved alien lives during the earthquake. I know you understand alien medicine better than almost anyone. Jake was confused. How does that help us fight a war? Maybe it does not, Carter admitted. But I am trying everything. I am calling doctors, scientists, engineers, teachers. Anyone who might have ideas. Anyone who might know something that could help. I am just a doctor, Jake said. No, Carter said firmly. You are a human who saved alien lives when you did not have to. You are a human who spent months learning alien medicine just to help one child. That kind of thinking might be exactly what we need. After the call ended, Jake sat in his office for a long time. He looked out the window at the red landscape of Mars. Thousands of humans lived in the dome cities scattered across the planet. Families, children, people who just wanted to live peaceful lives. All of them would die if the hegemony carried out their threat. Jake turned on the news feeds to learn more. The reports were terrifying. The hegemony had already positioned fleets near major human worlds. They were not bluffing. In 6 months, if humans did not leave voluntarily, the killing would begin. The worst part was the disunity among humans themselves. The Earth government wanted to negotiate. The Mars colonies wanted to fight. The Outer Rim settlements wanted to run and hide in deep space. No one could agree on what to do. Jake watched interviews with human leaders. They all seemed scared and confused. Some blamed Earth for expanding too fast. Others blamed the colonies for being too independent. A few even suggested that maybe the aliens were right and humans should just give up. It made Jake angry. These were the same humans who had built cities on dead worlds. The same humans who had created medicines that saved millions of lives. The same humans who had reached out in friendship to dozens of alien species. Now they were talking about surrender before the fight even began. Over the next few days, Jake could not focus on his work. Every patient reminded him that soon there might be no more human patients to treat. Every child reminded him of Lyra, the small Zephyrian girl who had once looked at him with such trust and gratitude. He wondered what had happened to her. Was she still alive? Was she part of the Zephyrian military that now threatened humanity? Had she forgotten the human doctor who taught her to walk? Jake tried to push these thoughts away. It did not matter what one Zephyrian thought. The entire galaxy wanted humans gone. One person could not change that. But late at night, Jake remembered Lyra's words. I will remember the human who gave back the sky. In Zephyrian culture, giving back the sky meant restoring someone's destiny. It meant giving them a future they thought was lost forever. Jake had given Lyra her future. Now he wondered if anyone could give humanity its future back. The days passed quickly. News from other human worlds grew worse. The hegemony fleets were getting larger. Some alien species that had been neutral were joining the coalition against humanity. Fear was spreading through every human settlement. Jake made a decision. He could not just sit and wait for the end. He began studying everything he could about the 12 species in the hegemony. their biology, their cultures, their histories. If Admiral Carter was right, and his knowledge of alien medicine might help, then he would make sure he knew everything possible. What he learned made him even more worried. The Zephyrian Star Empire was not just part of the hegemony. They were the leaders. Their military technology was the most advanced. Their fleets were the largest. If there was any hope of stopping the hegemony, it would have to involve dealing with the Zephyrians. Jake also learned something else. The current ruler of the Zephyrian Star Empire was a young Empress who had come to power only 5 years ago. Her name was not mentioned in most reports, but one intelligence document included it, Empress Lyra. Jake stared at the name on his computer screen. It could be a coincidence. Lyra might be a common name among Zephyrians, but something deep inside told him it was not a coincidence. The broken child he had saved 18 years ago had grown up to become the most powerful Empress in Zephyrian history, and now she was leading a coalition that wanted to destroy every human in the galaxy. Jake turned off his computer and sat in the darkness of his office. Outside, the lights of New Phoenix City twinkled under the dome. Millions of humans going about their lives not knowing that their time might be running out. If Lyra really was the Empress, then she had certainly forgotten about the human doctor who helped her walk. Or maybe she remembered and did not care. Maybe she thought humans deserved to be destroyed. Either way, Jake realized that the galaxy was about to change forever. The question was whether any humans would be alive to see it. On the crystal throne of the Zephyrian homeworld, Empress Lyra stared at the reports spread before her. Fleet positions, troop numbers, supply lines. Everything was ready for the final phase of the campaign against humanity. In just 5 months, the human species would be removed from the galaxy forever. Lyra was no longer the small broken child who had once lain dying under fallen rocks. She had grown into a tall, graceful leader, with sharp intelligence and unbreakable will. Her blue-gray skin now had the deeper color that came with age and authority. Her large, dark eyes could inspire loyalty or strike fear with equal ease. But today, those eyes were troubled. "Your Majesty," said General Katos as he entered the throne room. He was an old warrior with many scars and a traditional view of Zephyrian strength. "The fleet commanders are ready for your final orders." Lyra did not answer immediately. She was thinking about something that had been bothering her for weeks. When the hegemony first proposed destroying humanity, it had seemed logical. Humans were expanding fast, they were unpredictable, they did things that other species found strange and dangerous. But the more Lyra thought about humans, the more she remembered one human in particular. "General Katos," she said finally. "Tell me again why humans are considered a threat." Katos looked surprised by the question. "Your Majesty, we have discussed this many times. Humans form bonds across species lines. They refuse to accept natural hierarchies. They help other species even when there is no benefit to themselves. This behavior will eventually destabilize the entire galactic order." "And this makes them evil?" Lyra asked. "It makes them dangerous," Katos replied firmly. "A species that does not follow proper rules cannot be allowed to spread." Lyra stood up from her throne and walked to the great window that looked out over the capital city. Millions of Zephyrians lived and worked in the crystal spires below. All of them trusted her to make the right decisions for their empire. "What, if the rules are wrong?" she asked quietly. "Your Majesty?" Katos sounded shocked. Lyra turned to face him. What if helping other species is not dangerous? What if forming bonds across species lines is not wrong? What if the humans are not the problem? General Katos stepped forward, his face hard with disapproval. "Your Majesty, I must speak plainly. These thoughts are not worthy of a Zephyrian Empress. We are the strongest species in the galaxy because we follow the old ways. We do not waste resources on the weak. We do not form emotional attachments to outsiders. We take what we need and leave the rest." "And yet," Lyra said, 18 years ago, a human wasted months of his time and valuable resources on a weak, broken Zephyrian child that even her own people had abandoned. Katos looked confused. "I do not understand, Your Majesty." "That child was me," Lyra said. The silence in the throne room was complete. General Kaitos stared at his Empress as if seeing her for the first time. That is impossible, he said finally. You have never been weak. You have never been broken. Have I not? Lyra smiled sadly. When I was 7 years old, I was crushed under falling rocks during an earthquake. My spine was destroyed. My legs were useless. My own people left me to die because I could no longer contribute to the clan. She began walking around the throne room, her movements perfectly graceful and strong. But a human doctor named Jake Morrison refused to give up on me. He spent 4 months creating new treatments just for my injuries. He taught me to walk again when everyone said it was impossible. He gave me back my future. General Kaitos shook his head. Even if this story is true, it changes nothing. One act of kindness does not make an entire species worth saving. Does it not? Lyra asked. That one act of kindness created me. Everything I have accomplished, everything our empire has gained under my rule, exists because one human chose to help instead of walking away. You would have found another way, Kaitos insisted. Zephyrian strength always finds a way. No, Lyra said firmly. Without Jake Morrison, I would have died in that medical tent. Without his compassion, his refusal to accept that some people cannot be saved, there would be no Empress Lyra. There would be no golden age of the Zephyrian Empire. She moved to her command console and brought up files that very few Zephyrians had ever seen. Medical records, personal logs, research notes, all from her time on Kepler 442b. After I came home, I studied everything about human medicine and culture. Lyra continued. Do you know what I learned? Humans help other species all the time, not for profit or political advantage, but because they believe it is right. They have saved Draknari colonies from plague. They have shared farming techniques with the Votek. They have taught the Crystalline Union how to treat mental illness. General Kaitos was growing angry. And you think this makes them superior to us? I think it makes them valuable, Lyra replied. More valuable than we have realized. Your Majesty, Kaitos said, his voice taking on a dangerous tone. I have served the Zephyrian Empire for 40 years. I have seen weak rulers who let sentiment cloud their judgment. I will not watch you destroy everything our people have built for the sake of one human who showed you kindness as a child. Is that a threat, General? Lyra asked calmly. It is a statement of fact, Kaitos replied. The fleet commanders agree with me. The other hegemony species are counting on us. If you try to withdraw from this campaign, you will find that your authority has limits. Lyra nodded slowly. I see. And what exactly are you proposing? Continue with the plan, Kaitos said. Destroy the humans as agreed. Maintain Zephyrian leadership of the galaxy. Or step aside and let someone with more traditional values take the throne. For a long moment, Lyra said nothing. Then she smiled. General Kaitos, do you remember why I became Empress? Because of your noble blood and political skills, he answered carefully. No, Lyra said. I became Empress because I challenged the previous ruler to single combat and won. I became Empress because I proved that strength comes in many forms. I became Empress because I showed our people that sometimes the old ways must change. She moved closer to Kaitos, and for the first time, the old general looked nervous. You speak of traditional values, Lyra continued. Let us settle this in the traditional way. You and me. Single combat. If you win, you can lead the fleet against humanity yourself. If I win, the Zephyrian Empire withdraws from the hegemony. Kaitos looked around the throne room. The other officials present were watching with intense interest. He could not refuse without looking like a coward. Very well, Your Majesty, he said. Traditional weapons? Of course, Lyra agreed. The combat was brief and decisive. Kaitos was strong and experienced, but Lyra was faster and smarter. More importantly, she fought with perfect balance and coordination. Every movement showed the gift that Jake Morrison had given her 18 years ago. The ability to walk, to run, to fly, to fight with grace and power. When it was over, General Kados lay defeated on the crystal floor of the throne room. He was not dead, but his authority was broken forever. "Let this be a lesson," Lyra announced to the assembled officials. "The Zephyrian Empire follows strength, not tradition, and sometimes true strength means admitting when we are wrong." She turned to her communications officer. "Send a message to all fleet commanders. The Zephyrian Empire is withdrawing from the Hegemony Coalition. Any ship that refuses to obey this order will be considered in rebellion." "Your Majesty," the officer said nervously. "What reason should I give?" Lyra thought for a moment. "Tell them that the Empress has a debt to pay. A debt that is more important than conquest." As the message went out across the Zephyrian fleet, Lyra returned to her throne, but she did not sit down. Instead, she stood looking out at the stars, thinking about a human doctor on Mars who had no idea that his greatest patient was about to repay an old kindness. The galaxy was about to change, and this time Lyra would be the one giving back the sky. Jake Morrison was checking on a patient with lung problems when his communication device started beeping with an urgent priority signal. He finished his examination and stepped into his office to take the call. The face on the screen belonged to Commander Ryan Burke, the head of Mars Colony Security. Burke looked nervous and confused. "Dr. Morrison," Burke said, "we have a very strange situation here. A single Zephyrian warship just entered Mars space. It is requesting permission to dock at the main station." Jake felt his heart start beating faster. "Just one ship? Are you sure it is not a trick?" "We scanned it thoroughly," Burke replied. "It is definitely alone. No other ships within 10 light years. But Doctor, this is not just any Zephyrian ship, it is a royal dreadnought, the personal vessel of their Empress." "The Empress?" Jake tried to keep his voice steady. "What does she want?" "That is the strangest part," Burke said. "She sent a personal message requesting a medical consultation, with you specifically, by name." Jake sat down heavily in his chair. After all these years, after all his wondering, Lyra had found him. "What did you tell her?" Jake asked. "Nothing yet," Burke said. "I wanted to check with you first. Doctor, this could be a trap. The Zephyrian Empire is leading the coalition against us. Why would their Empress come here alone just to see a doctor?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. He thought about the small child he had saved 18 years ago. He thought about the promise she had made to remember him. He thought about the current crisis facing humanity. "Grant her permission to dock," Jake said finally. "Are you sure?" Burke asked. "We could arrest her, use her as a hostage to negotiate with the hegemony." "No," Jake said firmly. "She came here under a flag of truce, asking for medical help. I will not break that trust." 2 hours later, Jake stood in the main docking bay of Mars Station. He had dressed in his best clothes and brought his medical bag, though he had no idea what kind of consultation the Empress might need. The Zephyrian dreadnought was huge and beautiful. Its crystal hull caught the light from Mars's sun and threw rainbows across the docking bay walls. Jake had never seen anything so magnificent. The ship's door opened with a soft hiss. First came 4 Zephyrian guards in ceremonial armor. They moved with perfect precision and obvious deadly skill. Behind them walked several officials in flowing robes. Finally, the Empress herself appeared. Jake barely recognized her. Lyra had grown tall and graceful, with the natural elegance of her species enhanced by obvious strength and confidence. She wore simple but expensive clothes that seemed to shimmer as she moved. Her large, dark eyes were the same as he remembered, but now they held the weight of commanding an empire. When she saw Jake, she stopped walking. For a moment, the powerful Empress looked like the grateful child he had once known. "Hello, Jake," she said softly. "Hello, Lyra," Jake replied. The Empress's guards looked shocked that a human would use her name so casually. But Lyra just smiled. "You look older," she said. "So do you," Jake said, "though much more impressive than I expected." Lyra laughed, and the sound was musical, just like when she was a child. "May we speak privately?" Jake nodded and led her to a small conference room near the docking bay. Her guards wanted to follow, but Lyra waved them away. When they were alone, Lyra sat down across from Jake and studied his face carefully. "I have thought about you often over the years," she said. "I wondered if you were still alive. If you remembered the broken child you saved." "I never forgot," Jake said. "I always wondered what happened to you. I never imagined you would become an Empress." "Neither did I," Lyra admitted. "After you healed me, I went home determined to prove that I was not worthless. I studied harder than anyone. I trained longer than anyone. I learned to fight, to lead, to inspire others. All because one human showed me that broken things could be fixed." Jake felt tears in his eyes. "You did not need me to become great. You were always strong inside." "Perhaps," Lyra said. "But without you, I would never have had the chance to find out." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Jake asked the question that had been bothering him for months. "Lyra, why is your empire trying to destroy humanity? We are not a threat to anyone." Lyra's expression grew sad. "Because the other species fear you. They fear your compassion, your willingness to help others without asking for anything in return. They think it makes you dangerous." "And what do you think?" Jake asked. "I think," Lyra said slowly, "that compassion is the greatest strength in the universe. I think the galaxy needs more humans, not fewer." Jake felt hope rising in his chest. "Then why are the Zephyrians leading the hegemony against us?" "They were," Lyra corrected. "As of yesterday, the Zephyrian Empire has withdrawn from the coalition." Jake stared at her in shock. "You withdrew? But that means... It means the hegemony has lost its most powerful member." Lyra finished. "It means the other species will have to reconsider their plans. And it means I can offer you something that might save your people." "What kind of offer?" Jake asked carefully. Lyra leaned forward. "I cannot openly defend humanity without starting a civil war in my own empire. Too many Zephyrians still believe in the old ways of strength through isolation, but I can do something else." She reached into her robes and pulled out a small crystal device. "This contains advanced Zephyrian medical technology and military intelligence about all the hegemony species. Their weaknesses, their fleet positions, their supply lines. Everything you would need to mount an effective defense." Jake took the device with trembling hands. "Why are you giving this to me?" "Because 18 years ago you taught me something important," Lyra said. "You taught me that sometimes helping one person can change everything. Now I want to see if helping one person can save an entire species." "I do not understand," Jake said. Lyra stood up and began walking around the small room. "Your people are scattered and divided. They have no unified leadership, no common purpose. The hegemony is counting on this weakness." "But what can I do about it?" Jake asked. "I am just a doctor." "You are the only human trusted by a major alien power," Lyra replied. "You are the person who saved the Zephyrian Empress when her own people gave up on her. That gives you a unique authority." She stopped walking and looked directly at Jake. "I want you to unite the human colonies under a single banner. Use the intelligence I have given you to coordinate their defenses. Show the galaxy that humanity deserves to survive." Jake felt overwhelmed. "I am not a leader. I do not know anything about politics or military strategy." "You know about healing," Lyra said. "And right now humanity needs healing more than anything else. You taught me to walk when everyone said I should crawl. Now teach your species to stand when the galaxy says they should kneel." Jake looked at the crystal device in his hands. It felt heavier than it should, weighted with the responsibility it represented. "What if I fail?" he asked. "Then at least you will have tried," Lyra said. "And that is more than anyone else is doing." She moved toward the door, then paused. "Jake, there is something else you should know. The remaining hegemony species are planning to attack in 3 months, not 6. They moved up the schedule when they learned we had withdrawn." Jake felt cold fear in his stomach. 3 months? That is not enough time. "It will have to be," Lyra said. But remember, you are not alone. When the time comes, when humanity makes its stand, look to the stars. You might be surprised by what you see. Before Jake could ask what she meant, Lyra was gone. He sat alone in the conference room, holding alien technology that might save his species, wondering how a simple doctor had become humanity's last hope. Outside the window, the Zephyrian dreadnought was already preparing to leave. But Jake had a feeling this would not be the last time he saw Empress Lyra. The galaxy was about to find out what happened when humans refused to give up. 3 months later, Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the human flagship New Earth and watched the biggest fleet in human history prepare for battle. Ships from every human colony had come together above Epsilon Eridani, humanity's most important industrial world. It had taken everything Jake had to make this moment possible. Using Lyra's intelligence data, he had traveled to dozens of human worlds. He spoke to governors, military commanders, and colonial leaders. He showed them the alien technology and explained what was coming. At first, most of them did not want to listen to a simple doctor. But when Jake told them about Empress Lyra and how she had withdrawn the Zephyrian Empire from the hegemony, everything changed. Suddenly they realized that maybe humanity had a chance after all. The human fleet now had 600 ships instead of 300. They had better weapons thanks to Zephyrian technology. Most importantly, they had a plan. "Dr. Morrison," said Admiral Carter from her position at the command console, "long-range sensors are picking up the hegemony fleet. They will be here in 2 hours." Jake nodded. Over the past 3 months, Lisa Carter had become his closest ally. She had helped him convince the various human factions to work together. She had organized the defense of Epsilon Eridani, and she had accepted Jake as the political leader of what they now called the Terran Covenant. "How many ships?" Jake asked. 4,000, Carter replied grimly, "still more than 6 times our number." Jake looked out at the human fleet. The ships came from everywhere. Earth, Mars, the outer colonies, even the frontier worlds. Each one carried people who refused to give up without a fight. "Any word from our alien friends?" Jake asked. "The Votech are maintaining neutrality," Carter said. "The Crystalline Union is staying out of it. A few smaller species have offered to help, but their fleets are tiny." Jake tried not to feel disappointed. He had hoped that some of the species humanity had helped over the years would return the favor, but most aliens were too afraid of the hegemony to get involved. "Signal from the fleet," reported Communications Officer Linda Hayes. "All ships report ready for battle." Jake activated the fleet-wide communication system. His face appeared on screens throughout the human armada. "People of the Terran Covenant," he began. "Today we fight not just for our colonies or our worlds, but for our right to exist in this galaxy. The hegemony says we are dangerous because we help other species. They say we are a threat because we make friends across racial lines. They want to destroy us because we refuse to accept that some people cannot be saved." He paused, thinking about a small alien child lying broken under fallen rocks. "They are wrong," Jake continued. "Our compassion is not a weakness. Our willingness to help others is not a flaw. These qualities make us strong. They make us human. And today, we will show the galaxy that humans do not surrender." Cheers echoed across the communication channels. Jake felt a surge of pride in his species. Whatever happened next, humanity would face it together. "Enemy fleet dropping out of hyperspace," Carter announced. The tactical display showed the hegemony armada appearing in space near Epsilon Eridani. It was a terrifying sight. Thousands of alien warships in perfect formation led by the massive dreadnoughts of the remaining 9 species. "They're requesting our surrender," Linda Hayes reported. "Tell them no," Jake said simply. The battle began immediately. The hegemony fleet expected an easy victory, but the humans fought with desperate skill and coordination. Using Lyra's intelligence about alien weaknesses, they concentrated their attacks on critical systems. Human ships moved in precise formations that confused and frustrated their enemies. For an hour, the battle was closer than anyone expected. Human crews performed miracles of courage and ingenuity. But slowly, the numbers began to tell. Despite their improved tactics and technology, The humans were still vastly outnumbered. "We are losing ships faster than we can replace them," Carter said quietly. "At this rate, we have maybe 30 minutes before our lines collapse." Jake watched the tactical display with growing despair. The human fleet was fighting magnificently, but it was not going to be enough. Soon, the hegemony would break through and begin destroying the industrial stations around Epsilon Eridani. Then Linda Hayes shouted from her station, "New contacts! Ships dropping out of hyperspace behind the hegemony fleet." Jake spun around to look at the display. At first, he could not believe what he was seeing. Hundreds of new ships were appearing in space, ships with the distinctive crystal hulls of the Zephyrian Star Empire. "Is that—" Carter began. "The entire Zephyrian Imperial fleet," Jake finished, his voice full of wonder. The lead Zephyrian ship opened a communication channel. Empress Lyra's face appeared on every screen in both fleets. "Attention all vessels," she said, her voice carrying absolute authority. "This is Empress Lyra of the Zephyrian Star Empire. I hereby declare that any attack on human ships will be considered an act of war against my empire." The hegemony fleet stopped moving. Confused signals flashed between their ships as commanders tried to understand what was happening. Lyra continued, her broadcast. 18 years ago, a human doctor saved my life when my own people had given up on me. He spent months teaching me to walk again. He showed me that broken things could be fixed, that abandoned people could be saved." Jake felt tears running down his face as he listened. "That act of compassion created everything I have become," Lyra said. "It shaped my understanding of what true strength means. And today, I repay that debt by defending the species that taught me the value of helping others." One of the hegemony commanders tried to respond. "Empress Lyra, the coalition against humanity was your idea. You cannot withdraw now." "I can, and I do," Lyra replied firmly. "The Zephyrian Empire will defend humanity against any aggressor. This is my final word on the matter." The effect on the hegemony fleet was immediate. Without the Zephyrians, they were no longer vastly superior to the human forces. Several species began withdrawing their ships from the battle line. The Draknari commander sent a message. "If the Zephyrians will not honor their commitment, neither will we." Within minutes, the great hegemony coalition was falling apart. Species that had joined only because everyone else was doing it began to have second thoughts. The few remaining aggressive species found themselves badly outnumbered by the combined human and Zephyrian fleets. The battle ended not with a final clash, but with a general retreat. The hegemony fleet scattered in all directions, leaving human space for good. An hour later, Jake found himself aboard Lyra's flagship, standing in an elegant conference room with crystal walls that showed the stars outside. "You came," Jake said simply. "I promise to remember," Lyra replied. "I promise to remember the human who gave back the sky." "You saved my entire species," Jake said. "How do I even begin to thank you?" Lyra smiled. "You already did. 18 years ago, when you refused to give up on a broken alien child." She moved to one of the crystal windows and looked out at the mixed fleet of human and Zephyrian ships. "There is something else you should know," she said. "The past 18 years have not just been about me remembering your kindness. I have been studying human culture, human medicine, human philosophy. I have been learning what makes your species special." "And what did you learn?" Jake asked. "That you were right," Lyra said. "Compassion is not a weakness. It is the greatest strength in the universe. My empire is stronger now because I learned that lesson. We have better medicine, better technology, better relationships with other species. All because one human showed me that helping others is what makes life worth living." Jake felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had happened. One act of medical care had not just saved a life. It had changed an entire civilization's understanding of what strength really meant. "What happens now?" Jake asked. "Now humanity takes its place as a full member of the galactic community," Lyra said, "with the Zephyrian Empire as your ally and protector. And maybe over time other species will learn what I learned, that the humans are not dangerous because they help others. They are necessary because they help others." Jake looked out at the stars and thought about all the human colonies scattered across the galaxy. Children would grow up safe now. Families would not have to fear destruction. Scientists could continue exploring. Doctors could continue healing. All because 18 years ago, he had refused to give up on a patient everyone else had written off. "Lyra," Jake said, "thank you for remembering." "Thank you for teaching me to walk," she replied, in more ways than one. As Jake returned to his own ship, he realized that this was only the beginning. Humanity had not just survived. They had gained the most powerful ally in the galaxy, an ally who understood that true strength came not from conquest but from compassion. The galaxy would never be the same, and it would be better for the change.